Hi, little Isaac. It's Grandma Suzanne again. I still don't have my full voice after all the reading yesterday. Here's little Munchie right with me. Munchie's looking right at you, saying, "Hi, little Isaac. I feel like I know you already. We spend so much time together." I think Munchie likes the books too. Well, time for another one. I'm going to finish the Dr. Seuss one another time, but I think that's downstairs and I'm upstairs. So I'm going to read another book, which is called The Curious Garden by Peter Brown. This looks like a fun book too. Even the inside covers are fun, even when they're just little pebbles. The Curious Garden by Peter Brown. There once was a city without gardens or trees or greenery of any kind. Most people spent their time indoors. As you can imagine, it was a very dreary place. You live near a big city, so you have seen places a little bit like this. Your mom and dad moved right before you were born, or your place you would have been living was a little bit more like that. Not as much space for gardens because there's so many people and buildings. However, there was one boy who loved being outside. Even on drizzly days, while everyone else stayed inside, you could always find Liam happily splashing through the neighborhood. You can't get over how beautiful every one of these books is, every one of these paintings. It's evocative. You get a feel for the cold and the cool and the gray and the puddles and the damp and just the dreariness. It was on one such morning that Liam made several surprising discoveries. He was wandering around the old railway, as he did from time to time, when he stumbled upon a dark stairwell leading up to the tracks. The railway had stopped working ages ago, and since Liam had always wanted to explore the tracks, there was only one thing for the curious boy to do. I'm going to hold this close so that you can see in the best light possible. He's under the tracks, and he's walking along. Oops, I got to load it. He's running along with his umbrella, and then he comes to a spot where there's a little opening and a stairway that goes up to the top. Liam ran up the stairs, pushed open the door, and stepped out onto the railway. The first thing he saw was a lonely patch of color. Wildflowers and plants were the last things he had expected to find up there. But when he took a closer look, it became clear that the plants were dying. They needed a gardener. You know, in 2 weeks, I think you're going to be in town, and I have a stack of books that aren't due until after you're here. It's going to be fun to read to you in person. Liam may not have been a gardener, but he knew that he could help. So he returned to the railway the very next day and got to work. The flowers nearly drowned, and he had a few pruning problems, but the plants patiently waited while Liam found better ways of gardening. What are the ways he's trying? Too much water, too much cutting, He's singing to the plants. He's trying everything. He's learning. That's how you learn. As the weeks rolled by, Liam began to feel like a real gardener, and the plants began to feel like a real garden. What a fascinating little boy to take this upon himself, to find this garden that nobody notices, and take it upon himself to take care of it. Now, somebody wrote in this book, so ignore that little drawings, little child. Most gardens stay in one place, but this was no ordinary garden. With miles of open railway ahead of it, the garden was growing restless. It wanted to explore. The tough little weeds and mosses were the first to move. They popped up farther and farther down the tracks and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. Show you in the right light so that the light from the window gives you the best view of this. How the plants start moving down the railway tracks, finding a little patch of dirt, even if it's just between some old boards. I have that here in my yard. It'll be a board like this that gets cracks from time and weather, and then it rots inside, and little seeds get in there, and then they grow. That's what happens as the plants just move on down the track. Oh my. Hey, stop that book. Here we go. It starts to go dark. Oh, look at that. Look at what they've done on their own. That's amazing. Over the next few months, Liam and the Curious Garden explored every corner of the railway. It's a little hard to see because the child wrote over the words. Holy smokes, look at that. Look at that. Flowers in such abundance. Spreading and spreading and spreading. From seeds growing and birds dropping the seeds. He's following the tracks. And plants are growing in all sorts of places. Flowers and plants and flowers of all different kinds. After spending his spring and summer and autumn with the garden, Liam's time on the railway was finally interrupted by winter. Heavy blankets of snow fell on the city that season. And for the first time since he'd become a gardener, Liam could not visit the plants. Snow's covering everything. Rather than waste his winter worrying about the garden, Liam spent it preparing for spring. He's sitting there with his book, reading about plants, planning for spring. After 3 cold months, the snow finally began to melt, and Liam rolled his new gardening gear over to the railway. Look at him. He has all this gardening gear. He has a wheelbarrow. I have a little wagon for you, and a little wheelbarrow that used to be your mom's. He has little shovels and rakes and watering can and clippers, and he has a hat for the sun and a scarf around his neck like I always wear because I get colds. I read that already. This is like I've been doing this week. Just after the snow melts, I was out there getting the garden ready. And I already have little things in the ground growing. Winter had taken a toll on the garden. It does. It never comes back all nice and tidy and ready. Winter takes a toll on the things that are out there, as you can expect. It's cold, it's wet. But thanks to Liam's planting, his handy new tools, and a little help from the sun, the plants soon awoke from their winter sleep. He's even still singing to his plants. Look at the little bird and all the different colored plants. And one thing he's got a lot of is patience, because it takes a little while for things to grow. I'm a grown-up gardener, and I was sitting staring at my little seedling plants yesterday, like checking on them a bunch of times during the day to see if any new ones had sprouted yet. I'm like a little kid without a lot of patience, waiting for my garden to grow. The garden had always wanted to explore the rest of the city, and that spring it was finally ready to make its move. Once again, the tough little weeds and mosses set out first. They popped up farther and farther from the railway and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. That's how it works. One plant has seeds. The seeds blow, the birds carry them. They get dropped in many places. They grow there. Then that grows and flowers, and then the seeds have the flowers have the seeds that are then ready to go and spread, and then they grow in the new places until it becomes amazingly beautiful, all on its own, with us needing to do very little at all. The garden was especially curious about old, forgotten things. It grew in old cars, abandoned, rusty old cars. It grew in a tree coming out of a boarded up old window. And in the little sidewalk cracks, flowers grow. You'll see that a lot. Where you are right now, you'll see it. When you take walks, it's got old sidewalks that are cracked and things are growing right up out of it and right along next to it. Like you'll see right as you go outside of your house and you turn, if your back is to the house, you turn left, a tree that's right there still on the property is lifting up the sidewalk, call them panels, the slabs of concrete. It's lifting it up. But even just in a walk into town, you'll see this phenomenon with the plants and trees growing in the most amazing places. It's curious. A few plants plopped up where they didn't belong, covering a stop sign, some ivy, wrapping around a fire hydrant, but he's good about removing these things. I'm sorry, I punched Munchie just got upset. I was trying to position the book so you could see it, but I poked my little sleeping Maisie. Others mysteriously popped up all at once. So we had few plants popping up where they didn't belong, and others mysteriously popping up all at once. An old man opens his door and finds a pot with flowers all growing up and blooming. And there's a little stealth gardener with his wheelbarrow, dropping off whole gardens. Look at that, sliding out, already planted. I wonder who that is. But the most surprising thing that popped up were the new gardeners. Look at all those people planting gardens that never were before, like on top of buildings. He's got a whole army of kids following him, becoming gardeners. Look at these on top of all of these buildings, alongside roadways, growing up the sides of buildings. And all because Liam got it started, which nature started before him. This is amazing. Look at this on top of buildings. So much the woman is mowing the lawn up there. This is beautiful. Oh man, look how one thing leads to another. Steps with green moss and flowers growing right on them. People sitting out by flower beds. Alongside the water. Lily pods in the water. Look at this. I'm going to linger on each picture so you can see. It's a little bit hard to make sure the light is right. Look, even topiaries of animals. Many years later, the entire city had blossomed. But of all the new gardens, Liam's favorite was where it all began. This was a nice book. I think I went a little bit over 15 minutes. Let's see if it sends it all.